All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode. That's right, the London Blue Podcast. Hopefully, your favorite Chelsea podcast out there and a part of the Men in Blazers Media Network. Dan, one of your hosts here alongside Nick. And it's a midweek mailbag. We haven't done one of these in a while, but we had plenty of comments to sort through after our latest match review podcast that we did over the weekend. And appreciate all the comments and commentary and people kind of jumping in to continue to have the conversation with us about like what's going wrong with Chelsea at the moment right now. And surprise, surprise, Nick, sometimes we do these mailbags and we get some questions that are not Chelsea related. They're a little fun. They talk about favorite movies or food. It was all business in this one.
Yeah, business, BIDNESS. It was nice to see people enjoyed our which teams have more points than we do in the last 15 games game.
That did well, yeah.
Yeah, that was really fun. There was no what's your favorite beer? What vacation are you looking forward to the most? Why aren't we better? That was the tone of this. So we're going to do our best. Obviously, we are not the sporting directors of the club. I think we have some ideas and some good insight and some analysis that we're gonna set forward here. But again, appreciate everyone who submits questions, especially on short notice. We originally were planning to do a special with one of our journalist friends, and both of our schedules this week just really sucked, and we're trying to kind of manufacture the best pod that we can. So thought this would be the best route to go.
Yeah, enjoy this on your commute, your run, your walk, or however you enjoy the podcast. Maybe use it to annoy people at work who are potentially feeling better about not supporting Chelsea at the moment, or potentially you just want to annoy because they don't support a team as good as Chelsea in historic terms, not in current form. Anyway, first question right off the top, Tom from Discord gets into the conversation around missing veteran presence. Says his attempt at a football question, which again we appreciate, since it appears this team lacks a veteran presence to help the young squad through an inevitable growing pains. Are there any, Nick, veteran players Chelsea should target in the summer to bring into the club?
Yeah, I'm a big leadership kind of stems from the back and moves forward in your team sheet. So, I think our center backs, like Tosin's been kind of touted as a leader. Reece James is obviously the captain of the club. Enzo Fernandez is the vice captain of the club. Colwill might be an emerging leader. I think more people lately have come around to think like if Colwill had a consistent senior center back next to him, he could afford to be a 22, 23-year-old center back for a minute, which would be nice. So the three that I'll submit, and if you have arguments to these, we'd love to hear it. Put it in the comments, send us an email, whatever. Mark Gahey's been touted to return. That will only happen if we make Champions League, so I'm not counting on that at all. But he's a leader. He's a captain. He's been a captain at Palace for a while now. He's an England international. He is an incredible person and leader, and I think would add a hell of a lot of steel to this team. And, obviously coming back to his boyhood club, I think would generate a lot of good feels and emotions. A senior goalkeeper worth a damn would also help build from the back with a lot of confidence. I'm looking at someone like Oblak from Atletico Madrid, or someone of that
21-year-old football manager regen coming in.
Yep. And then someone who I think most people might have heard a little bit about is Andre Santos. And look, you're telling me, Nick, he's not a veteran presence. He's barely whatever. He's 20, 21 years old, whatever he is. He is a born leader. Like, there are some people that are just, they wake up every morning and they are leaders no matter what. These people in your life. He is one of these people. And I think if he were in the team, and maybe, I don't think he's going to consistently play every single match next season or anything like that. But like, if he's in the team, I don't think you can have enough leaders in a team. And if you have a great goalkeeper who's a strong leader, you have a really great center back who's a commanding leader, and you have a midfielder who's able to communicate up the spine of the team. To me, Dan, that is what is really helpful. It's not to say you can't have leaders elsewhere, that Reece James will stop being a leader if you bring in these other people, whatever. But I do think you need tried and true leadership in this team to make it work. And the only way that's going to happen is if this inexperienced team does the unthinkable now and gets Champions League football.
So I think people are going to, frankly, not bite on the Andre Santos take that you had. I'll give you one thing to help you, though. He will have
Thanks.
done more to help a team qualify to get into the Champions League than some of the players on Chelsea's current roster. If you just want to make an argument about it, I'm just saying, Nick. I'm just saying that he's done enough to help a team get in Champions League qualification spots here, which is not what the entirety of this Chelsea team is doing at the exact moment. Could change between now of time of recording on the 15th of April. By the end of the season, this take could be very, very dead and buried then, but at least on current moment,
it's tax day in America, Dan, and boy, has this been a taxing season. And I think that is a really good shout. I mean, this is Andre Santos. I'm telling you, man, there are going to be a bunch of people, you're right, who are like, Nick, you're just projecting. This is not real. This kid is special. And if he was here this season, I guarantee you the moments of midfield uncertainty or our worry that Moises Caicedo was going to get this next yellow card, whatever, would be eliminated. And he would be pointing out people in defense. He would be commanding from midfield. He's just that guy.
And the only one that maybe I can come up with that feels, I guess, good-ish. I mean, there's names that maybe Chelsea have been linked to, right? We've been linked to Jonathan David, the striker. I mean, he's 25. He's probably would be viewed as a more veteran type of presence on a team. He's younger, but he has 2 effectively now full seasons in the Premier League in Murillo from Forest. Like, you could consider him maybe a more veteran presence, particularly if we're looking to go into defense. Again, the knock would be that he's 22 and he's had, I think, one really, really strong season and one season that was on a team that just barely stayed afloat. But again, that team that barely stayed afloat is now 3rd in the Premier League at time of recording. And so he has played a part of that process too. So, I mean, those are 2 names I can give you. I think the larger question heading in this next one from Grizz is just around the challenge of supporting Chelsea. And he asked a very fair question. And I'm shocked we don't get this question more. How checked out are you guys with the team or not at all? Is it difficult to do a podcast about this shit? And then he just commented with his own personal feelings, say he feels personally extremely disconnected with the club. So much respect, Nick, for continuing to make content.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long, long season. Every season is a long season, right? Because whether you're playing great or you're not playing great, and recently it's been the latter. Obviously, we've been very up and down. It's been a very chaotic transfer window, a lot of summer tours. It's been not the easiest thing to do at times. Like, I think going on after the Ipswich game in particular, I was just so fired up and pissed off that, I'm glad we left that to the evening, didn't record that right after the match. But I think there's a couple of components to this. Like, I love the club. I will always love the club. I don't love the way it's being run right now. I don't love the decisions that are being made. And I certainly understand people who are not as connected as they used to be, because I think that there is a feeling that you become enamored with the club that is bigger than the play on the field. A sense of community, a excitement, a belief. And I just don't think that that's there right now. And so I don't begrudge anybody. We have certainly seen throughout this Clear Lake period that there are people who kind of come and go to the podcast, who are like, I don't think I can listen to it this week, or I don't think I can listen to it for a minute because I'm not in love with it right now. Like, we don't begrudge anyone. Just do your thing. I think my point on this, Dan, is that there's only one group of people who can make this better, and that's the ownership group. They have the entire power to make the situation better or potentially worse. right? I mean, it can get worse. It wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, it's like the monkey paw thing. Like, be careful what you wish for, because the outcome I wish might not be as intended.
Yeah, I mean, so I think why I said the story of this season in my first part of my comment here is every season is a series of chapters to a story, right? Every game is a series of chapters. Every transfer window is a chapter. Like, and what we do is try and string these things together over a long tail to tell the most accurate and I think compelling version of that story as possible. And when you look at it like that, our week to week podcasts may seem trivial because one chapter of a story doesn't make the entire story. But there have been some seasons where the story has trended up to a really happy ending. And there are some seasons, like I believe this season will be, which is trending towards a not happy ending. And it's difficult to always have the right perspective when you're frustrated. And I get yelled at all the time on Twitter for being wrong or whatever, people disagreeing with me. I bring it on myself, but it's not the easiest thing to do, but we've been doing this for a long time. Like we're pretty used to it, I guess. I don't know. How do you feel about this? Sorry for rambling there.
Well, I think there are fun times to do the podcast when we have great wins. And I think there are times where the losses are really terrible and you don't feel as great having to figure out how to talk about it for 30 minutes or 40 minutes. But I also think it's a type of general therapy as a sports fan. And our therapy just happens in front of, a couple thousand to 10,000 plus people on a given week, multiple times a week, potentially. And I don't know, it's healthier for me to have some place to process those thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And rather than just be frustrated that a team I care about, a team that's brought me a lot of positives in my life, both
Totally.
footballing and friendship wise, that could not be replicated without Chelsea existing. I would miss it greatly if it disappeared tomorrow. And I think that's the way I tend to think about it, is like, hey, if this was just ripped away from you tomorrow, even knowing how bad maybe it is at the moment or how bad it feels, like would your life be better or worse? And I think my life would be worse. And so, like, in that framing, I take what we have now and I take the fact that, like, we're playing in the Premier League. We haven't been relegated. And like, maybe you'd argue my standards have slipped. So, like, I will just tell you, there's a question later about the shifting standards at Chelsea Football Club, and we will get to that. But it, to me, is just a privilege that people want to listen to us. Whether it's one time a week, multiple times a week, whether it's once or twice a month when the result is really good and not when it's bad, or maybe when it is bad because they want to see if we finally broken and are absolutely bashing into people. I don't think that's ever going to happen. But in this time, I do think it is more challenging, and I would not besmirch anybody for skipping an episode or two. And we encourage you to do the right thing for your mental health and sanity, and we're always here for you, which is the important thing. Well, look, to get things into a happier mood, I'm going to talk about darkest timeline in the moment, because someone did ask about what happens if Arsenal wins the Champions League, but we're going to do that after our first ad break. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. Oh man, Nick, this is a doozy of a question from our guy, Childish Gambino.
Hated this. Hated it. Hated it. Hated it.
I know you would. I know you did. I know you will continue to do so. He asked the question, what in the fuck are we going to do if Arsenal actually win the Champions League? And he said, yes, this is way too early. Many more immediate horrors to contemplate, of which I agree. There are many. But I'm not going to miss a shot at reverse jinx. Credit to CG for making sure the reverse jinx is in play. I not thought about that recently, but I'm glad somebody has it out there. Glad we put it on record. Glad we're doing our part to help ensure that football remains a safe place for all of us. Because it will not be a safe place if Arsenal wins.
No. In fact, yeah, the reverse jinx is a smart. We haven't unveiled that tactic in some time. Like we've kept that powder dry, and I think if there was any time to pull out the stops, it was like Spurs against Liverpool in 2019. I think it's probably since that point that there's been a moment where you're like, maybe, I don't know. So yeah, well done on the reverse jinx. First step in contemplating this horrific and tragic and terrible scenario is drink heavily. if that is your thing. Step one, I would just really lace into it. Get everything behind you, and then what I want you to do is go win yourself a third Champions League on FIFA just to make yourself feel better, right? The team won't be doing that for some time, but you yourself can log into the old FIFA on your Xbox or PS5, whatever, and go win yourself a third Champions League. Because regardless of this outcome, we will always have one more Champions League than Arsenal do. And we have this memory of stopping their invincible team from advancing in the Champions League at the quarterfinal stage back in 2003. Matt Law recently had an article about the Invincibles and what Mourinho, Terry, and Lampard thought about that team. Our 04-05 team absolutely unequivocally dusts them. Dust in the wind. They would be gone. So these are the sorts of things that go through my head. Sure, is it coping? 100%. There's no doubt about it. It would be one of my very least favorite days that I've existed on this earth, but it's not the end of the story.
All right, so as of time of recording, they're 3 up. Real Madrid, you could do the craziest thing. You did it to us, so just do it to the other London team. Make it happen.
There's ever a time for UEFA to come through in the clutch with some absurd refereeing against an English team. We've already paid our penance for this. We have been refereed against many a time. If there was ever a time, it would be lovely to see that happen.
Look, Ancelotti indicated that there's 3 C's for comebacks, and it's the head, heart, and the balls. So, I mean, that just might be what we need to bank on first and foremost. That doesn't happen. It looks very, very likely that PSG will be required to get the job done. And if that isn't the case, that PSG can't do it and Real Madrid can't do it, I mean, they're heading to a semifinal. And then we're hoping, final. And then we're hoping Barcelona, most likely, or Inter or Munich end up stopping them.
Which could happen still. Like,
yes,
Bayern Munich's a very good team.
Barcelona's a very good team. I mean, they waxed Benfica. Munich had it a little bit easier. Leverkusen ahead of them. I mean, like, there have been some lighter draws on that side of the. I mean, PSG had to go through Liverpool. Like, that was not
PSG's
fun for them.
Very good. Very good
team. So, look, all hope is not lost. We will hope for not that outcome. And I mean, I think if you wanted to say who you would hope would win it, Nick, I mean, it would be any non-English team at this point, because fifth is secure in the Champions League, and there's only one real English team left in Arsenal. I mean, Villa's not coming back, so
Real Madrid, step on up, claim your prize, 4-0, and complete what would be just the hardest copium that would ever happen to the Arsenal supporters in their lifetime. Just do it. I want to see Robbie from AFTV at the Bernabeu doing his pre-match pep talk, and then they get smacked 4 or 5-0. Oh, God. Let one good thing happen to us this year, goddammit. Come on.
Yeah, any team that's won it before is perfectly fine to me. Matt asking a question just in relation to this. After watching the Champions League this year and seeing the level of competition, do we think that we can compete within the next 5 years? And then he mentioned that he personally thinks that we are not remotely close. So I think the question first, Nick, is actually, as of today, on the 15th of 2025 of April, can Chelsea qualify for the Champions League within the next 5 years?
Oh, man. If we don't, we're going to be a mid-table team for the entire Clear Lake era, right?
Yeah.
Because we're 3.5, 4 years in right now. And we're just about 3 years in. But if we go 5 without, that's 8 of the 10 years that they're contractually obligated to be here. Then we're just perennial mid-table team.
I will say we do qualify at some point within the next 5 years. I think it will likely be benefiting from the fact that the Premier League with the 5th spot, or through winning Europa League. Like, I think through one of those vehicles in the next couple years is how we're going to qualify. And I think it's going to be harder on league form, frankly, at least currently.
We're a terrible league team.
Get me a great knockout coach again. Get me a Tuchel regen and just like, let's go run riot in Europe and have some fun, go to some cool cities, and hoist another trophy. If we're not going to win the Premier League, like let's go win some European silverware. That's perfectly fine with me. Competing in the Champions League, I think, is a whole different story. And I think it probably is on the tail end of that 5. If things go perfect or close to perfect in the next couple of years, you could argue that we would probably be a much more competitive team in Europe on the Champions League stage beyond just the first rounds of qualification.
Yeah, I think competitive to me means like quarterfinals or better, like not round of 16. I think like Chelsea getting to a quarterfinal and being in a really great tie in a quarterfinal, maybe advancing, maybe just barely not make, like that's kind of the mindset that I'm in. It's a maybe, but it's not a confident maybe. Like if we were to play in these quarterfinals against these teams right now, we would lose 6-1 aggregate. To me, like I think we'd absolutely get blown out. You play Barcelona, you play Arsenal, like for whatever reason in Champions League they're different than they are in the Premier League. I think we're absolutely cooked against a Bayern Munich. I think we're absolutely cooked against Real Madrid. Like we're nowhere near the level right now. And so to get to that level is going to happen through either coach getting better, new players coming in, or the current players improving beyond their current levels. And that's it.
Yeah, I think it will be challenging, but not unrealistic. It just requires everybody moving in the same direction, and that does not feel as if where we're heading currently, which just tie into TK Lott's question with the rank in order. The most and least responsible parties for the struggle the club is presently experiencing. Ownership is listed at number 1, with some of the framing being the wage cap, not commensurate with the clubs we intend to compete with for targets we're seemingly established as a club. Squad builders, Paul, Larry, Ben, for constructing a squad isn't capable of competing for targets, which the club sets despite exhaustive investment. And then the manager for not maximizing the squad at his disposal to the best of their capacity, therefore underperforming the established expectation. It's just, I mean, that just feels like 1, 2, 3 right there. Do we need to do any more than that?
No, I mean, like Harry Truman put on his desk in 1946, 47, the buck stops here. The buck stops with the owners. They're the ones who have the power to make the necessary changes to the structure, to the strategy, to everything. It is ultimately their responsibility. And in thinking about this question, it does bring up a lot to me of like, when Stewart, who we, that's the nickname they've been given by everyone, but they are doing the bidding of the owners. Like they are enacting and enabling and doing the strategy that has been set forth. I think they've had a huge part to do with that strategy, using that experience. Joe Shields doesn't escape blame here either. All of these guys are responsible, but ultimately, if the owner said change the fucking strategy, they would be doing a different strategy. Like it's not Win Stewart's call at the final bell. It's owners, sporting directors, and manager. And it's part of the reason why I think we have been lighter on Maresca up until this past podcast, where he just stuck his foot in his mouth, because what power does he really have? I mean, outside of like how the team gets better, and they clearly have not. And I think he does need to start to carry some blame for his coaching and his tactics and all that stuff. What power does he have? He's not the one bringing in new talent. He's just enacting the very safe conservative strategy that they've put forward, and it's not working.
Yeah, I think when you've been now through 3 manager hires, you would argue that the manager is one of the most replaceable parts in the organization. If you get a great manager,
most.
they completely change the way a team can perform. So you have to get that hire right. And so I view them as the least responsible party because they know what they sign up for. They know, I think as Matt maybe put in our live from Class Football Shirts, like maybe Potter was the only one who could argue he didn't really know that he was not going to get time, backing, energy to the level maybe commiserate he was expecting or anticipating. But Pochettino knew what he was walking into. Maresca knew what he was walking into. Like, I don't think they have any leg to stand on as it relates to like not knowing what the expectations were. I do think that this model of trying to use sabermetrics or overanalyze like the type of players and to hit on one of 10 and reap the rewards and continue to be like a massive player trading team is different from like winning first and then potentially also being able to do player trading. Like I think we've kind of went too far down one road and counterbalancing back on the metronome has not happened. Like it's just stuck on one side. And really that comes from the top. And so I think it is hey, you can be upset at Maresca. You can be upset at the sporting directors who helped sign off on his hire and who have given him the players. But then you also, if you're mad at them, you should also then be mad at the ownership group who have appointed people who struggle to get us front of kid sponsors, who, and again, it seems like it's a gamble, right? Like the reporting was like, oh, it's a gamble to try to get a better deal in the summer to get Champions League. Well, you might have missed out on 2 years of revenue there. And that sucks. And like, that's, a failure there. Like we haven't been as competitive as we should be. We spent a ton of money and it just hasn't paid off. And like owning up to that and saying, hey, we need to shift the strategy and shift the direction. And like this summer is going to be when you see it. I don't know if that's the case. And like, that's where you would win a lot of mind share if it was just even like hey, it didn't work. Here's what we're going to do to fix it. Here's what you're going to see this summer. Here's where we're heading into next season. We're freezing season ticket prices. Like, here's like all these pro supporter fan things that we're going to do.
Show some humility. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, yeah, we're going to ask for grace because this is the first time we've owned a football club. And like, you know what? I wish that I could have a football club with billions of dollars to make a mistake on this scale and then have the opportunity to be like, hey, you know what? Like, you have such a great group of generational supporters across Chelsea. People have come to Chelsea very recently. People have been Chelsea fans for multiple generations who, given a little bit of time, a little bit of opportunity to speak into the ear, a little bit of opportunity to hear honest words about what has and hasn't worked, it would go a long way to making this thing supporters, owners, manager, players, squad directors, like all would be heading in the right direction.
They have a huge job to do, and that's to get the good feeling, belief, community vibe back at the club. It's a huge job. And the thing about Moneyball, if you've ever watched that movie, the A's didn't win anything. It was cool. It was a thoughtful approach. They did an interesting thing. They never fucking won anything. And if I were these owners, just to what you just said, my number one goal would be instilling trust and revamping the model and figuring out the right personnel to carry out that revamp model and trying something else, because this is not worked out.
Seemingly on the flip side, because Kate asked the question, why can't our men's team be as good as the women's team? And the sub-question is the players, the manager, the team cohesion as a whole. I mean, my quick summary on this, Nick, was like, this was a great team before the acquisition. It will continue to be a great team. The way it was built up in the decade prior to now, like it is an elite team with some of the best footballers in the world in the women's game. It has some of the best individuals on like a football operations side involved in it. It has just been continued investment ahead of scale, and that has kept this team basically an arm's length away from everyone outside of the most kind of progressive clubs in terms of how much they're spending to support it, because I think that's the critical thing. Like it was an investment to get this team to be there, and a lot of trust in the people you put in place, like Paul Green, like Emma Hayes, and now like Sonia Bonpastor, to carry this thing forward. It is a lot of those things, but I know that you have a kind of comp that you want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, this version of the Chelsea women's team, and really for a few years now prior to the acquisition in sale, this version is much like the 2004-2005 men's team when Roman took over. There was a shock and awe transfer strategy to get the best talent in the world at the club. Some homegrown talent mixed in. You think about Aggie Beaver Jones scoring the winner the other day. John Terry was already at the club doing his thing. And the best front office and the best managers in the world. Emma Hayes, Sonia Bonpastor, two of the best managers in the world. All of this is coming at a time where other clubs don't have the investment to keep up, right? Or are only able to make one big transfer at a time and not, two or three like Chelsea did in January alone. And it's provided a huge competitive advantage. Now, Chelsea have to press that advantage, right? And win the one trophy that's eluded them. And boy, do we have a tough task coming up on Sunday. So please tune in to Sunday's match. But this is that moment, and Chelsea need to execute, in this moment to continue to hold that advantage. Plenty of other teams of the world wish they were us, wish they had the organization, wish they had the support and the finances to do what we're doing. And, sure, some wrong decisions have been made along the way with the women's team. Some wrong transfers, some bad luck with injuries, all the stuff that just happens to a football club. But it has the chance to be incredibly special and long lasting, which is very exciting.
All right, we're going to take our last ad break. When we get back, plenty of, again, more fun, easy to answer questions like accepting the state of the club, what happens if Maresca doesn't finish above sixth place in the table, and more. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Okay, Nick, so question around for McLeasy. Should we as fans accept the current state of the club as the new norm and lower expectations? Easy question. You got this.
No. No. I mean, and I know it's a complicated answer actually, because it's whatever your state of mind is that comes with like how you process stuff. So it's actually not as straightforward as like we're joking about. But part of the reason why we are hard in this team, we've been hard in this team throughout this very tough 4 years since we won the Champions League, is because we have standards, because we know what this team is capable of, because we've seen them lift the biggest trophy on the biggest stage in person, because we've seen great Chelsea teams achieve incredible heights. And to do that stuff consistently is a real pain in the ass. It is a really difficult thing. And we have not been at all acceptable enough in the league. I mean, we went through this the other day on the podcast. It's been 10 years almost since we won the league last. And we haven't been competitive in that time at all to even come close to winning the league. So my standards are still Chelsea win the Premier League, Chelsea win the Champions League, Chelsea win the FA Cup, Chelsea go deep in the Carabao Cup, whatever the hell it is now. Like, that is still my standard, regardless of the current situation. Like, I give these young players some grace because they will eventually get to a spot where they're better than they are today. I give a little bit of grace to the manager situation. I give zero grace to the sporting directors, to the strategy, to the ownership. They're the ones who have to carry the standard, not us.
Yeah, I can understand that apathy, I think, has set in for many, and frustration with where the team is, where you look back and comparatively say, like, oh, we were winning the Premier League. We were going deep in the Champions League every year. We weren't necessarily in Europa outside of a couple odd seasons, one blip season kind of here or there. generally within top 2, top 3. And that's just unfortunately not where this team is calibrated to. And I think it's, I don't know if it's acceptance that like this is the standard, but I think it's just a rude awakening to like where the failed investment has put Chelsea. And look, some of that was happening under the old ownership. Like we were not getting better as much as we needed to be. Now you could argue we were winning some trophies, which always feels good and definitely covers over a lot of the problems. And if we had won a trophy last year, if we had won a trophy the year before, if we had won a trophy this year, like it will cover up some things. It's not going to cover up everything. Like it's not, you don't have a hole in your wall and you're like covering it up with like a poster and be like, the wind's not coming in today. We're all good here. Like you're going to still notice the breeze, but it is going to give you a little comfort onto the reality of the situation. But I do think, yes.
I also just, this is a venture capital, private equity sort of thing. The thing they respond to is money, right? You have a power of the wallet as a supporter. Choose what makes you happy, right? And if those choices aren't Chelsea Football Club, if it's not spending money on the pro shop, if it's not going to as many games as you used to go to, if it's not the subscriptions to all the apps and shit that they want to sell you, if it's not going, to the summer, the fucking Club World Cup, if it's not doing those things, they will notice. I guarantee it. Like that is a part of what the reverse of this situation is. Like when you believe in the club and the vibe is good and the money's flowing, everyone is happy. When the inverse is happening and you don't feel like anything is going right and they haven't heard your pleas and we haven't heard from them as an ownership group in a very long time, it's a way to get noticed. But it's a better way to get noticed than staging a terrible protest outside of Stamford Bridge. I'll tell you that.
Well, a couple of people like another Nick we know, Blue London 1905. We have Leojic and Techie all asking similar questions. So I'm going to group them together because the questions were, does the manager have to go if we finish at 6? If Maresca fails to make the top 5, do we fire him? And potentially what manager would you like to see replace him? And then if we miss Champions League and enter Europa League, should the club get rid of the sporting directors? And like, when does that and then functionally, when would all this happen? Because you also have the Club World Cup in June,
a month after the season ends.
Yeah. It's wild. Look, I think if Maresca wins the Europa League, if Chelsea Europa Conference League.
Yeah.
If Chelsea are in,
the Europa League's a whole bigger trophy, Dan. Come on now.
He somehow finds a way to get the team on the bus and get into the Europa League. Manages to switch out the team's registration. Gets Chelsea somehow registered.
Is that Chelsea's music?
They walk out the tunnel and people are like, "What the hell's going on here?" Qualify for the Champions League. It's great. Yeah. I think if he wins a trophy and they qualify for Europa or better, he will stay. That's just my gut feeling. Like, I don't know. I don't agree with it. Like, I think the standard should be much, much higher. I think Chelsea at this point should be back in the Champions League again. I'll be unhappy that we were talking about Thursday Night Football for 2 years in a row. It's not great from a content standpoint. I'll tell you that. And you probably know that as a listener better than we do. Mm-hmm. So I think of that mind, because of how close the Club World Cup is, because of how much Chelsea's staking on it, because they think that they can go far and win a bunch of money in it to make up for some of the shortcomings we've had in other areas financially, that they're going to go hard in that, and they don't want disruption between now and then. If they don't finish above 6, if we don't win the Conference League, I would expect him to be gone.
Yeah, so let me just take like the only way that I think he's gone is if we finish 8th or worse, which is still a possibility, and we don't win the UECL. Like that is the only way I foreseeably could like stomach him being, not stomach. The only way I could foresee him leaving the club at that point, because you're right. Like the Club World Cup basically guarantees him staying through at least the middle of July. And at that point, the season's only a month and some change away after that. Right. So your preseason is going to be pretty limited, and you're going to have to onboard a new coach or new sporting director staff or whatever in that like weird month after the Club World Cup. And, again, if you're thinking about like the penalty of Chelsea not making Champions League, that will be sponsorship next year. It's all of the shit. I mean, it is literally the key that holds what we do in the transfer window. Like it's everything. And so as we predict right now, and as Opta predicts 7th place, I think it could drop even lower than that on current form. And especially if Fulham beat us, like we're in danger. Like, yeah. Then I think if we are 8th and we don't win the trophy, like that's 2 spots worse than last year and no trophy. I can't see him staying. That's a cataclysmic failure.
And again, then that opens up the broad of like, what does that mean for the sporting directors? Because they signed off on multiple managers that have not gotten the job done. They've signed off on multiple players that have not necessarily made the team better, deals that have not made the team better. And so, like, again, open for whole re-review. This summer really screws it. You would actually hope if you were going to do like a manager, like handoff, changeover, that you would actually make it to next summer with the World Cup and kind of have like some additional latitude where like the player stuff maybe you can't do a whole lot with, but organizationally, like you could do a ton on the back end because you get this like actual break of like not having to do like a crazy preseason tour or something. We don't have that. But Ben White asked the question as a follow-up here, Nick. Is Maresca making players worse by trying to force strict adherence to his system and stifling creativity? I think you have a view on this. Many people would argue, though, like who has gotten better under, and then we mentioned this on the last podcast. It's a very, very short list of players who look better this season than last season.
It's Enzo Fernandez. It's Noni Madueke. It's Marco Correa. That is the list. That is the entire list. The end. I think the system is a lukewarm version of what Pep is doing at City. That's no surprise to anyone. With worse players and less time to embed the system with those worse players than what City has. Like, I mean, just like call it what it is. Like, let's not beat around the bush. And this is not a shot at like me saying the players are all terrible or whatever, but like the level of City's players and our players just I think is different and mostly worse. We're better in some areas, but mostly worse. However, I think the players also share a huge part of this responsibility, right? I think that they have stopped playing well within the system. I think they look jittery. I think they look unsure. And if that's the case, then what are you doing in training to get better, right? What is Maresca doing in training to help make the system come to life in a new way? We talked about the drop off, and in comparison between his Leicester season last year and his Chelsea season this year, it's almost fucking identical. It's a bad combination when the players are uncertain or unconfident, and the manager's not making the right adjustments to make them better or more confident. It's really a bad combo, but it's not just one party or the other's fault, except if you want to say it's the sporting director's fault, in which case, yes. But the players do have to share some responsibility for upping their game. I mean, we thought, Cole Palmer coming in this season might struggle a little bit, but not like this, right? He looks as unsure as I've seen him right now. Nico Jackson, same, right? You can't just rely on Moises Caicedo to do every job in the team. So other players got to step up.
Yeah, very similar to a question that Paul asked, just like have you improved season over season? I think the answer is a big no. Yeah. And so we'll kind of advance on that. We did get one fun-ish question. Carefree Tosser just asking, where are they now? LIBP version with Brandon Busby. It's just the same as it was at the beginning of the season. Fatherhood is work. It's on YouTube, covering for us when we're having a fun weekend out in Scotland, taking the weekend off and supporting with a lot of the administrative behind the scenes stuff, which helps his schedule, helps his work life, helps his home life be a little bit easier to manage, and which we are happy to do for him. Easy as you like. But hopefully we don't have to do more of those. Like, where are they now? For us, that'd be very unfortunate to have to do more of those later in the season. Andrew asking a question though, Nick. See, we got to run in to this end of the season here. You have the option to pull in anybody to go give the speech to the players, to set the stage, to set this tone. Who you drafting? Imaginary motivational speaker draft.
There's only one for me, and it's Jose Mourinho. I mean, Frank Lampard tells this story of a casual moment where he's coming out of the shower, has a towel, and Mourinho's waiting for him outside of the shower and looks him up and down and says, "You are the best player in the world right now. You, Frank Lampard of Chelsea Football Club, you're the best player in the world." And the way that he retells this, he's like, he had no idea what that did for me. He had no idea what confidence instilled in me. Like, I'm paraphrasing this story, by the way, go read it. But he just, when you talk about aura, like the word aura, it's him. It's him. Like, he is the motivational guy. He is the guy who always has something to say at the right moment. Like, is he past his best? Of course. But like that run that he initially had here, and the just pure, arrogance about, I just lift those young players up like he did to Lampard. That would be good for me.
Yeah, what about Tommy Tuchel? Would you let Tommy Tuchel give a little speech too to guide the team through
He
6 more finals?
He did quite well.
Be another good one, I think. I feel like players sometimes are good, like JT from like a Chelsea connection, but I also think like you have to kind of guide to where players are. Like, I think all those, unfortunately, are probably just a little like aged out. And so, and I also have aged out of probably knowing who the right person is to give the motivational address. So I'm going to use that as my opportunity to bypass to the next question here from Kevin. Does Estevo play right away for Chelsea, or do we loan him out? I think he stays, but I think his play will be
limited,
worked in. I don't think it's an immediate start.
It's ridiculous to assume, and I say this with respect, obviously. It's ridiculous to assume that a guy coming in from the Brazilian league at his age is going to be an automatic starter for Chelsea Football Club. He needs time to adapt. Jess and Nat have talked about that when we've done those South America pods. He needs time to adapt. He needs time to get settled. He needs time to learn. He needs time to be a part of the team. And once he does that and starts to feel the confidence of the club behind him, that is when he will start to do what he clearly is capable of doing. He's coming off of an unbelievable season, and don't rush him in. Don't put doubt in his head. Make sure that he's in the exact right spot when you deploy that weapon.
AJ asking a question, why are so many fans so impatient? Last manager we had that got 24 months was Antonio Conte from 16 to 18, 7 years ago. You can't build a culture and consistency on constant managerial rotation. Is it because the fan base is spoiled from 10 years ago or 10 years of trophies? Do we think that they just deserve it?
Oh, that's heavy, dog. That's a heavy one.
I mean, we are conditioned for success. Like, if you started following Chelsea in the early 2000s and you've stuck around, you didn't leave at any of the downward slopes, like, you're conditioned to winning. And it is just a very different thing when you root for a team that wins and you root for that team stops winning. Like, winning is the most fun thing about sport. I'm sorry. Like, you watch Rory this weekend in the Masters, like, winning is the best. hands
Winning's the
down.
best.
Yeah.
Well, and like, I think it's a big club thing. Like, if Real Madrid have a shit season, are their fans patient, ready to wait it out? No, they expect to win. Like, that is what they do. It might be arrogant, you know, when you say deserve it in your question, it might be an arrogance, but I believe we're one of these clubs that should be regularly challenging and winning stuff. I do. Like, we have all of the advantages, and we are creating disadvantages for ourselves, and that's just own goal stuff. And I also think, like, Chelsea supporters, we talked about like the connection to the club earlier. I think the connection to the club is so important for us, because we're not the same global brand that a Real Madrid is, right? Like, we have a smaller base of supporters, even though it's big. It's still smaller than some, and we have this, like, when it's real, when the connection is there. You mentioned Antonio Conte, you mentioned Thomas Tuchel. Yeah, it's palpable. Like, it is really, really palpable, and we're attracted to effort. We love to see players give effort. That's why Cesar Azpilicueta should eventually have a statue outside of whatever stadium we're playing at. It's why N'Golo Kante is beloved by the fans. It's why JT is such a resolute figure within the supporters culture. Like, we haven't always seen that in the last 4 years, and I think that's why people are feeling impatient. Plus, the strategy has not yet yielded fruit. So over the long tail, over the last 4 years, I get why people are impatient. We're not winning anything.
Yeah, it's all agreed. I don't think I have anything else to add on that one. It just did. We hope that we get spoiled with trophies again in the near future. And again, winning solves a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't solve all of them, but it would help make things go a lot better. And hopefully, we take our first steps there with the men's senior team this May, and start adding trophies to the cabinet once again, because that will make things all the bit sweeter. Stephen, with our last question, asking, what 3 players, 1 coach should Chelsea add this summer to get us at least to qualify for the Champions League? Then which 3 should we sell? Assume we're already replacing Maresca. I don't want to like replace Maresca before he's gone. So like we can hypothesize what we think would be happen or would be available. But maybe the players, because like Chelsea will add in players this summer. They need to do it. Very clear that the squad is a mirage level deep at this point in the desert, and we need to add some additional firepower or surer hands between the sticks. So, Nick, what were the 3 that you came up with?
Yeah, we'll talk about the potential managers last, because Dan has an absolute. He's going to infuriate people.
I'm just telling you who I think is available and what Chelsea would do. I don't know if I like the answer. I'm just telling you what I think would happen.
Don't spoil it. For me, you need a real left winger, and that left winger has always been Nico Williams. I love the guy. I think he was easily Spain's best player in the Euros last season, having a good season again. Like, this is an elite level left winger to complement an emerging talent, Noni Madueke, who's by far our best current winger. Been off a couple who are not performing. Let Ty George come through, sign a high class player like Nico Williams. I think you're in a really good spot there. You need more production from that side of the field than we're getting. You need a high conversion striker, but we're likely not going to get one. We're likely going to get one of, I believe, either Liam Delap or Jean-Philippe Mateta from Palace. Mateta is 27. Liam Delap is 22. Mateta is better on non-penalty XG than Delap. Delap is better on self-created shots and carries into the penalty area, successful dribbles. Mateta is a better shooting percentage at 19.2%, and has more turnovers. Look, all of this to say, I don't think we're getting, at our current trajectory, I don't think we're getting anyone huge in the striker department. But the goalkeeper is the area that you look at. And as much as Georgie is doing great right now, you bin off Sanchez and you bring in someone like Juan Oblak, or Jan Oblak. Sorry, not Juan, Jan Oblak from Atletico Madrid. You did them a super solid by taking Joao Felix off of their hands last summer. And, he's kind of getting to the end of his career. Oblak until Penders is potentially ready or one of the other goalkeepers shows themselves to be worth a damn. That would create a spine that I think would be very good.
Yeah, the Delap one makes, I think, a lot of sense with who Chelsea would look to go after. I mean, I think some of the, you call them signings, but I think three players that you're just going to add in by nature, like is, Petrovic comes back and potentially is a part of that goalkeeping core and at least raises the floor. Like, again, like I'm saying, I think we will not add in a bunch of I think we sign like maybe two players max. And I think a lot of it's going to be like Andre Santos comes back, Estevo comes in. Like it's just going to be additions and then a couple outs to balance the books where we can. Yeah. The coach one though, I'll just drop the coach one.
Come on.
So it's not my preferred option. He's nowhere necessarily on that list. But I think
by the way, before you say it, we both want Xabi Alonso. Okay?
Yes, 100%.
That is not going to happen. In no world is Xabi Alonso coming to Chelsea under the current circumstances. Continue, Dan.
I think this ownership group would bring Gareth Southgate in.
100%.
That just feels like the most natural effing thing in the world to happen. That Gareth Southgate can't take the England team to where they need to be, despite having the best crop of players ever, and you drop them into Chelsea with arguably some of the great people, but potentially some of the worst put together groupings of players that we've had in quite some time, and expect him to do magic. That is a recipe for tons of disaster.
Yep.
But boy, oh boy, it just feels like what's going to happen. And I've no inside knowledge on it. I've not talked to Matt about it. I've not talked to Ben about it. I'm just saying what I think would happen.
I could not agree with that more. I think that you just hit something on the head that is like, it feels inevitable. It feels because
this is when people start unsubscribe, 1-star reviews, they're done with the podcast forever. It's going to be first reported on the Wesley podcast, Gareth Southgate was a contender. It's going to get framed some way. 100%. AI is going to screw me on this one.
100%. No, and it would be so funny if you got blamed for it. It'd be incredible. Dan's not the sporting directors or the owners. Okay, so just leave them alone. I think the reason why they would go for Southgate is his history of managing young players.
Yeah.
That England team, he had to turn over that England team, and then he built something. Now, they didn't eventually achieve what I think we expected them to achieve, but he got him a hell of a lot of down the path, right? And his tactics were incredibly confusing and boring as shit sometimes. They also played some pretty good football at times. So, I don't know. It feels good. It feels right, I think you hit the nail on the head. Clearly, the club could have went with Luis Enrique and didn't for reasons passing understanding. And he's doing pretty well for PSG. They might be playing some of the best football in Europe right now. So glad we didn't do that.
Well, look, that's a wonderful grouping of questions for a midweek mailbag before Chelsea head back into that Europa Conference League competition that we've got going on to get the job done there and look ahead to a weekend versus Fulham. But tons more content your way. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep blue flag flying high.